If I had to rank one person as the one person who I'm pretty sure will end up dead, or I'm the most sure will end up dead, I think it's Chelsea. I think it's Chelsea. Hello, everyone. Welcome or welcome back to I See Melanie. Tonight we're talking about the season 3 finale of The White Lotus. So I'm recording this on the Tuesday night at around 10:52 p.m. So 2 days after it was released. And the reason why I'm doing it so late, this video so late, is because I just started a new job. Yay! So yeah, I'm a little late to the party, but I'm here now and my lights aren't working properly, so I might look a little weird. I'm also tired, so I look tired, but I'm here to talk. I got a brand new microphone. I'm very excited to talk about this finale with you all, so let's just jump into it. So, as per usual, let's start off with the midlife crisis ladies. So, in thinking back to their conversations in the last episode, I do now see that Jaclyn did have some points, some valid points she was bringing up to Laurie. Her method in which she did it was kind of not the best, but she wasn't completely in the wrong. And so it was very nice to see that, she realized that maybe she dealt with the situation not the greatest. And so she went up to Laurie's room to ask her to join them for breakfast. Later on, when they're at dinner, Kate mentions how the relationship, and in their lives individually, they've been tending to a garden and now everything is in bloom and she's so happy that they're all together. And then Jaclyn says how she's been on cloud nine this entire trip and how she feels so grounded, which I was thinking, were you on cloud nine? Were you grounded this entire trip? Because aside from all that stuff with Valentin, you're pretty mad at your husband and you're very competitive with basically every other woman you encountered. But, that's Jaclyn. And then, of course, Laurie, the truth-telling New Yorker, said that she's felt pretty crappy this entire trip and how she was saying that she realized that, some elements of her life. So the fact that she's been at this company, this firm for so long and she hasn't really progressed. And she had a pretty terrible marriage and even motherhood didn't bring her any degree of solace. And then she said something, and I wrote it down. She said how all those things didn't really bring meaning into her life, and that she doesn't have a religion, whether the religion is work or, a traditional religion, but she just feels as though time is what gives her life meaning. And to me, I would say, I believe all of those things gave her life meaning, even the terrible marriage, the terrible job, the daughter who I guess she doesn't get along with well enough. Those types of things color in so much of your life and inform you in so many different ways, for better or for worse, but they're all very essential to you. And she mentions that these long-standing relationships with her friends, with them, also bring meaning to her life. And I believe they do too. And then she also said that, even though she doesn't have everything sorted out, she's glad to be at the table with her friend with a great life and the friend with a pretty face. And I heard that, and I know a lot of people are commending that speech because I think Carrie Coon did a good job in doing it. But I think that Laurie is really selling her character short. She has a lot to offer. And again, I don't think she realizes that she has a lot of experience and a lot of great things to show and share to other people. But, I'm glad for them that they have reconciled. Last week I said I didn't think their friendship would last. I think their friendship can go the distance now that they've had this confrontation and this coming together. I think no one has really fundamentally changed. Jaclyn is going to be all about herself, as Jaclyn is. That's just her personality. They're all going to be the way they are, and that is fine as long as they can accept those personality traits in each other. That's good. And when you're in your 40s and you've been friends with these people since you were, 15 or whatever, you've been through a lot. I think these ladies, they'll be fine. Now let's talk about Belinda, Zion, and GaryGreg. So first thing, I was very happy to hear Belinda say that 100K wouldn't be enough because that was an issue I had last week. We see Belinda and Zion at GaryGreg's house, and Zion, the business school student, I think that's what he did. He is running the negotiations. And so I think he did a pretty good job in explaining his case for his mother, that he did his research very thoroughly, and he said, if you were to give us, not 100K, but 5 million, this will be good in getting my mom what you say you want her to have. You want her to have this great new career, all these opportunities. Also, if you want her silence, maybe you should up the reward a little bit. And you have so much money, you can really afford to give 1% of your wealth away for your protection so we won't rat you out. So the negotiation was good. And when Belinda left, she stormed off. I didn't realize at the time that she was doing a bit, but that was very effective. So I guess, she and her son are a good team. And we see later on that GaryGreg acquiesces and sends her the $5 million. So, yes, the negotiation was very good. I still think this is a bad idea. I think this is very short sighted. And, people get so blinded by money. Belinda is blinded by the money. Zion, good kid. He's young. I think he's probably under 25 years old. His frontal cortex hasn't fully formed yet. So he thinks this is a great idea. It's a terrible idea. And Belinda's bank, they're going to be on to her. If she had $12,000 in checking, that's a lot in a checking account. But to go from 12,000 to 5 million, the bank is going to be asking her questions. They'll be doing their own investigation. She'll be on a list. So yeah, I don't know. And so I'm glad that she got out of there quickly, got out of Thailand. And I've seen a lot of people say that Belinda pulled a Tanya on Porn Shy because she left without setting up that business with him. And I say to that, first of all, she barely knew Porn Shy. Okay, so she is not really, pulling anything back from him or, reneging on anything. They had nothing going on. She is a newly minted millionaire. She needs to get herself together mentally, financially. She needs to get herself sorted out before she makes any arrangements, let alone with somebody who she just met. And I was wrong. At least it appears I was wrong. Porn Shy is not in cahoots with GaryGreg. He is a good guy. But yeah, sorry, Porn Shy. She's got to go. And you might be happy that you're not, tying bundles. You're not doing business with Belinda because I think that she's going to be caught eventually. Now let's go on to the Ratliff, starting off with Piper. So I called it. I was right about Piper. But she is a rich person. She is privileged, and she, even though she might not realize it, she does have a certain viewpoint and perspective on life that's probably going to be different from a lot of the other people who are at that meditation center. So I guess we'll see how things shake out for her. It was so funny when she mentioned that the food didn't taste organic. Like, not even that it tasted bad or not as good, that it didn't taste organic. This girl, she is privileged. She might want to be better than her family. She might have good ideas in her head. But she has a viewpoint. She has a lifestyle that she is used to. So I think it's good that she feels bad about it and that she's crying about it, that she's tormented about it. She's a young woman. She has time to change her mind. I think the fact that, she feels bad about it shows that she's conscientious of it. And perhaps maybe with some more time, a few more years under her belt, she could go to this meditation center or do something else that is a bit more selfless. But I did think it was funny when Victoria mentioned about how good of a life they had and how, they have all this wealth. They need to take advantage of it because it would be offensive if they didn't. And that sounds like such a rich people thing to say. But, as somebody who's not rich like that at all, I have to agree with her because sometimes, when you hear stories of people who win, tens of millions of dollars and they go back to their job at like a factory or something, that makes me so angry. It's like, why are you doing this? But I guess that's just how me and Victoria think. And Victoria's reaction to Piper's update, it was just so funny. She was so gleeful. She was so happy and I told you so. I'm surprised she didn't actually say those words, but yeah, the look on her face was just... Parker Posey is just so good. Now let's talk about Lochlan and Saxon. So yes, they're still awkward with each other for obvious reasons. And Lochlan, of course, he's being passive. Piper isn't going to stay at the meditation center. And of course, Lochlan dropped the idea already. And then we see Lochlan say to Saxon, oh, if you make a smoothie, I'll drink it. And Saxon's just like, if you want to be a man, you want to do something, do it yourself. And so, yeah, he's just talking about a smoothie, but that whole thing the idea that Lochlan needs to make up his mind for himself and stop being a pushover, yeah, he needs to step up for himself. And when they're talking about, that night, and Lochlan said he wanted to make Saxon feel like he was part of the party, and he is a people pleaser in a family of narcissists. So, like, that sentence, that is correct. But Lochlan, there are lines. There are lines. And with those two, who knows? I have no idea how Saxon and Lochlan are going to get over that whole situation from that night on the boat. No idea. I just wish them well in that, and hopefully they can get back to being just regular brothers, and Lochlan can grow up a little bit. I think Saxon has had a bit of growth in the past couple of days, so hopefully that keeps up for him when he gets back to North Carolina. Now let's talk about Timothy and Pina Colada night. So after Timothy ascertains that the only person in his family who can live without money is Lochlan, he decides to have a party with alcohol because Lochlan's a kid, he can't drink it, but the rest of them can drink his special concoction that has those deadly seeds. So when he's making his speech about how much he loves his family and how his job is to protect them, it's just like the thinking behind it. Like, I am protecting my wife and my two 20-something-year-old kids by, ending their lives, because how could they live a life, lesser than what they've been living with less money? So it's just really crazy, and it goes to show how people can justify and rationalize things in their minds that are just so wrong. And so when he made it, he gave it to everyone but Lochlan, and Saxon looked like he was drinking it the most because he thought it smelled and tasted weird. And like when that happened, when he gave all of them their glasses, I had so much dread in my body when I was watching that. I was like, oh my gosh, he's going to do it. And I said last week that I thought he was going to chicken out, and he did, thankfully. And like when he threw Saxon's glass down, I felt so relieved. And I was surprised too that nobody really asked him. Like, that is quite a reaction. You can say, oh, you know what? Yeah, the coconut milk or coconut cream, yeah, it's off. Let's not drink it. But he just slapped it down. But, Victoria, she's always ready to have a drink. So if pina coladas don't work, there's wine we can always drink. And another thing I called out last week, I could see him putting the side fruit in the blender and then chickening out and not serving it to his family members. But I could also see him doing that and leaving it somewhere, and then somebody drinks it thinking it's, a fruit smoothie, and it ends up being, this deadly fruit. I had the right idea. He left some of the concoction out there, and good old Lochlan goes and he makes his smoothie. So first when I saw this, I thought to myself, you know what? I am not an 18-year-old boy. I don't know how they think, but to make a new smoothie using a dirty blender, you can't do that, Lochlan. Using me as an example. So I make mocha pot coffee every morning on my stove to get, stovetop espresso. But I add water to it to make it like an Americano. And so I boiled my water in my kettle. And sometimes next morning when I'm doing the whole thing over again, there's some water left over in my kettle. I don't even drink that water. I will use that water to water my plants, but I'm not drinking it because it's been in the kettle for 24 hours. And that's a little weird maybe, but definitely people don't use dirty blenders to make your smoothies, to make your protein shakes. Anyway, so Lochlan, he drinks it, and we see him off in the corner, and you see that, he's losing it. And when he was, throwing up, and when it looked like he was getting really sick and that he was going to die, I thought he was the one who would end up in the body bag, or at least a body bag. And yeah, that's when the tears started rolling down my eyes, because Lochlan, yes, he's a very wayward teen. He has done some really questionable things on this trip, but I don't want him to go out like that. I don't want anybody to go out like that. And he just looks so helpless, and he was having those flashes of, his family members. Like, they say people go through that before they perish. And so I thought, oh my gosh, look at this. Look at what Timothy did. And when he finally woke up and he sees Lochlan and he's just screaming for help and he's cradling him, it was just such a heartbreaking scene to watch. It was really, really bad. Of course, we know Lochlan, he gets better, and his dad is obviously very relieved. And I was relieved that Lochlan was okay. But in a weird way, I almost thought it was too easy for Timothy. I thought he didn't deserve to have his son come back and be fine. Again, it's kind of weird because I want Lochlan to be fine. But Timothy really, he was so callous. And the idea that he came this close to like offing his family, his entire family and himself, no, he needs to get it right. And anyway, so when they go back home and they get their phones back on the boat, and it looks like the looks between Lochlan and Piper show that they're seeing the bad news. And then Timothy says, we'll get through it. We'll be okay. I don't know. So I think my theory about Victoria, it's not explicitly wrong. It wasn't proven that she knew everything that was going on with Timothy this entire time. But I would not be surprised if in season 4 she comes back by herself without Timothy and she reveals that, yeah, she put him up to it somehow, or that she had her own stash of money somewhere so she'll be fine. But anyway, that is the end of the Ratliffs. Now let's go on to the tragedy that is Rick and Chelsea. I called it. I knew Chelsea was going to die for sure, and I was pretty certain that Rick was going to as well. As I mentioned in the breakdown of the trailer that we saw last week for this episode, Rick did look very elated and happy and gleeful when he saw Chelsea on the beach when she runs up and she jumps into his arms, but that was just temporary for Rick. Rick is not a happy person. So you know how people say, oh, this person is broken? I don't really believe that people are broken, at least not like that. And 'cause I do think that people can change and people can get better. But he is what a lot of people would call a broken person. So at the beach where Chelsea's talking to Saxon about all this woo-woo stuff, so about spirituality and different groupings of people who are spiritually bound, but they don't necessarily know each other, and the stars aligning and all that kind of stuff. And then later on at dinner with Rick, she's saying kind of the same types of things. She's saying how what happens to him happens to her, and what else? She says they're spiritually in line with each other. Chelsea says to Rick, I think we're going to be together forever. And she looks up at him to see his response. And while he's eating his food, he says, yep, that's the plan. And she looked so surprised when she heard him say that because she didn't know how he felt. She wasn't confident in him, as she shouldn't have been, because he's been so distant and just not available this entire time. With Rick, I think he's a fundamentally very sad person. I think he has a lot of issues stemming from his childhood. He is what I would say, as Dan Savage would say, he's not in good working order. He's not in good working order to be a partner to Chelsea. He's also not good in of himself. He is a wrecking ball. His entire life hasn't been good. For at least 40 years of it, a bulk of it, since his mother died, he's been tormented and he's been carrying this the entire time. And Chelsea says, I'm here for him. I'm here for you. He doesn't need a Chelsea. He needs an Amrita as a therapist, not as a wife or a girlfriend. He needs Amrita, somebody who can help him deal with his inner demons. Chelsea has been delusional this whole time. She's let the laws of the universe override what she's seeing with her bare eyes. Rick really had some nerve sticking around the hotel knowing what he did to Jim, and when he sees Jim at the hotel, he says the same things I said, because yes, I believe that Rick was fed a lie from when he was 10. I called it. I don't believe that what she said was 100% true, because saying his dad was a do-gooder, that's such a fairy tale-like expression or a way to describe somebody. I think it's really embellished.
Wanted you to think your father was some kind of great man. She told you a fairy tale, kid.
Rick has let what his mom told him define his entire youth and adulthood. The idea that he didn't tell Chelsea about, what he did and how this man could be mad at him, Or, there's a very good chance he did tell Chelsea this and she was just saying, it'll be okay, it's fine. So when he takes off, he goes to see Amrita, but she's busy, and then he sees Jim, and like a man who has no control over his feelings, a man who's very reckless and impulsive, he goes up and he gets the guy's pew pew. I can't say the G word, because I feel as though my other videos were shadow banned because I said K space LL too much and G space N too much. But anyway, yeah, so he sees this old man and he gets his weapon and he finishes his life. And he does that so recklessly in front of all the ladies. And you see Laurie, the true New Yorker, she runs off with the swiftness. The other ones are not as fast as she is. But yeah, he does this. It's so reckless. And then Sritala admits that he is indeed his father. Now, I know a lot of people were speculating that. I actually didn't think that would be the case. I knew that he knew the mother because the reaction that he had in the last episode, yeah, he knew that name. But yeah, that's his dad. So he ended his dad's life. And then when the henchmen go after him and he gets the better of the henchmen, and then Gaytok, who is finally effective at his job. Well, he's a bit late because he comes to the fight of the pew-pews after everything is done. But he has all the talk about the killer instincts, and he's got the training on the weapon, and he's got his boss, like his ultimate boss, imploring him to end Rick's life. And he does it. Gaytok sacrificed all of his principles, everything he felt was right, everything that defined him as a person, who defined him as a nice, good guy who we've seen this entire season, all went out the window. He didn't just finish Rick's life, he executed him. He pew-pewed him in the back, which is one of the most cowardly ways you could pew-pew somebody. I feel ridiculous saying pew-pew, but I don't want to get in trouble. But yeah, that image of Rick walking. Oh, I forgot. I didn't mention this. And then, of course, yeah, Chelsea got caught in the crossfire because, once again, I called it. I have Chelsea. Again, I think that she's going to be collateral damage somehow in that whole situation with Rick. And it seems as though Chelsea lost all of her survival instincts. Like, I know it was very fast-paced. And yeah, I was very surprised that when Rick, approached his dad and did what he did, and then the reaction to it, yeah, I'm sure she's never been in a situation like that, or maybe not recently. But she lost all of her survival instincts. Rick was behind that big metal drum or that plate, or however you want to describe it, and she was just kind of out in the open. And she gets one in the chest. And I knew that was going to happen to her. I knew that she was going to have her life extinguished because of Rick. Because of Rick. And yeah, he looked devastated, as he should have been. And he goes off and carries her. And then, as I mentioned just now, Talk gets him and they fall in the water. And it was just so tragic. So tragic. And when we see Rick's face, his lifeless face looks the most serene we've seen him this entire time. This wrecking ball named Rick, who was so responsible for Chelsea's young life ending, who was responsible for, or semi-responsible for, his friend Frank falling off the wagon. Thankfully, it looks like he's back in the meditation center, and maybe he can get back on the wagon. I hope so for his sake. But yeah, Rick is he was a tragic character. And as bad as I think he is, Chelsea, she should have stood up for herself. So everyone out there, don't be a Chelsea. If you meet a man or a woman or an NB or anybody, and you think of them as your child and you want to heal them, maybe they're not the person for you. If they can't travel to Australia for some mysterious reason and they don't give you a good reason as to why, or they give you the reason as to why and it's a bad reason, maybe you shouldn't be with them. If they're always disinterested or disengaged or reckless and flying off the handle or flying to Bangkok randomly, maybe that person isn't the person you should cement your life to. So, yeah, so Chelsea, she wasn't coerced in any of this. She made her bed, and now she's lying in it in a body bag, which is very unfortunate, but what else was going to happen with her being in a relationship with somebody like Rick? So, final thoughts about this episode and the entire season. I really love this season. I was kind of shaky at the beginning, as I mentioned a few videos ago, because it was a slow start. But now I'd say this is my favorite White Lotus season. So 3, then 2, then 1. I was rewatching some of season 1 just last week, the first 4 episodes, and Sydney Sweeney's character and the brother and the friend, they were just so rude. And I hate seeing like kids or 20-year-olds who are just so rude to their parents, talking to them like they're on the same level. So I really didn't like that season, and I did like last season, but I think this one is even more interesting. I really enjoyed it. And of course, I love the actors. I think they all did a fabulous job. I love Parker Posey, love seeing her. I've never seen Patrick Schwarzenegger before, or act at least, so he was very good. I think they were all very, very good. What else? Oh, and of course, I love the scenery. The scenery is beautiful. The hotels, the villas, like, oh gosh. I would love to be able to stay at any one of the White Lotus suites, but I think I like this one here in Thailand and the one in Sicily or Palermo, I think. I can't remember, but I like those ones the best. Oh, and just yesterday, I learned that John Grice, so the man who plays GaryGreg, is the same guy who played Uncle Rico in Napoleon Dynamite. I love Napoleon Dynamite. I probably watched that movie 15 times back in the mid 2000s. So I just learned that yesterday. So anyway, yes, I'm very much looking forward to season 4 of White Lotus. I'm hoping that, Victoria can come back. Mike White did a really great job. All the haters out there saying it was a slow burn. It was a slow burn, yeah. But it's good. It was good appointment TV. I was really, really into it. And I can't wait to see what he does in season 4. Bring back Parker Posey. We need her. And hopefully whoever they get to do the music next year will have a better time than the guy who quit very dramatically a couple of days ago, or they announced it a couple of days ago. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to the next season of White Lotus. And so I think the next show I'll be reviewing is The Last of Us. So I have to rewatch some of the episodes from the first season to get caught up. But yeah, I love HBO shows. So yeah, I'll be here to talk about something. Anyway, thank you so much for watching me here on I See Melanie. So now I'm done recording at 11:41. So I'm going to go to bed now because I had to wake up early to start my new job. And for my 3rd day. So I'll see you later, and like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. And bye.